Hi, everybody. You've got Lauren Tida here, Senior Executive Editor of Phoenix Home and Garden Magazine. We're here with Anita Lang of IMI Design. She's a prominent interior designer here in the Valley and one of our picks for 2021 Masters of the Southwest. First of all, congratulations for the win.
Thank you so much, Lauren, and thank you to the whole Phoenix Home and Garden team. That was really a wonderful surprise.
So what was your reaction when you received it, and what does it mean to you?
That's a great question. Honestly, the first reaction is like, I'm not old enough for this. I felt like, don't you have to have like white hair and like a guru robe or something to be a master of anything? But then it really was an honor. I really appreciate it. It always feels nice when in our industry we can be recognized, and there's a lot of hard work that goes into our careers, and it felt nice. So I really am honored, and I do thank the whole team for choosing us.
Obviously, you have quite the footprint here in the Valley in the world of interior design. What first sparked your interest in the business?
I honestly, Lauren, I can't remember that I wasn't designing in my head. It's always been part of who I am. In trying to answer that question, I'm thinking back into my childhood, and my dad was a German engineer. So he was always doing things and making things and building our own houses. So I was very involved in doing construction. And I remember as early as somewhere between 8 and 10, I would work in his machine shop, because that's what German kids do. You just work all the time. If you don't work, you don't eat. So it was always about working. And I remember working away there and designing in my head my own cabin. I can still see it to this day. I mean, I was 8 or 10 and my mind was just putting this whole cabin together. There was a great loft. There was a little kitchen area. Like, it's just truly how my mind has been geared from the get-go. So it just evolved. Like, I just grew in the design world.
So obviously every interior designer gets inspiration from somewhere. And I know you travel quite a bit prior to the pandemic and go to Milan every year. So where do you get your inspiration from?
Good question. I feel like creatives, and I don't mean to sound coy, but I think creatives, the answer is everywhere. Like, everything, we're a sponge, we're pulling in every experience we have, every visual that we have becomes imprinted on our brains. I mean, it could be the way the light is coming through the palm trees and creating a certain shadow and shapes on the ground. It could be the way you see a frog knot on a kimono and how intricate that is. Like, everything is noticed and collected and imprinted on our senses and in our mind. And then when I'm awarded a project, I sit there with that reservoir of images and imprints that are in my head. And then I learn from the client what's important to them, what do they respond to, and what are they hoping to feel in the space. And then all of it goes into a creative sort of zone and funnel, and out of that comes these solutions. And honestly, sometimes I'm as excited to see what comes out of that as my client is, because it feels sometimes like the ideas are coming through me and not because of me. And it's like, voila, here's the perfect solution for you. And it's really exciting to be in that creative zone. I can't tell sometimes if 5 minutes go by or 5 hours go by. It is just such a great space to be in. And it's what I love, of course, of doing my chosen career.
So obviously there is a lot of communication back and forth with clients to kind of achieve what they want, but every designer has their personal aesthetic. What is your signature look?
So I feel like my work is diverse because, one, I get bored really easy. So I like a lot of stimuli, and I like to come up with innovation, and I'm not just repeating the same look, because so much is impacted by, one, of course, who the client is, two, the vernacular and what the architecture is doing. So there's not one right answer. So I can't just repeat what I did before. But there are some guidelines that I use in my work that I think are consistent from project to project. I love organic materials, and I am more likely to use natural materials and we become more and more green about the way we do that, but there is a long lasting effect by using natural materials. And I love architecture, and I love thinking through the structure itself before I even put a dot of furnishings in there or decorative items like artwork. Like the architecture needs to stand strong and on its own. And already as you're walking through that, you need to feel good. So I spend a lot of time really manipulating the interior structures and what I want to do, interior masking, what materiality makes sense and feels authentic for that particular project, and the vernacular that it's in. So I think the way that I sculpt the interior space, the way that I use natural materials, and that I like form and simple lines is a characteristic in all of my work, even though it does vary depending on the client and the other elements of it.
So obviously trends come and go, but what are some trends that you're loving right now?
So I really try to stay away from trends. So by the time you're seeing it everywhere, and it goes really quickly these days, trends come really quick, and they're in Walmart and Target, and they've almost become overdone before they almost started. So as a designer, I feel like it's our job to think what the next thing is, what is something more interesting, and how do you make a project a little more timeless so it doesn't look like, oh, you can tell I did that in the 90s or 2000, right? So that we can be a little bit further along in the way that we're creating a concept. I have to tell you though, I am fascinated with the 1970s. So it's so groovy. So I have a lot of inspiration that's kind of retro right now, including like my glasses, which aren't these like little 70 dreadlord glasses?
Oh my
God. So much fun. So so I see that creeping into my work, and I do like projects that are curated. So you bring in things from different time periods. You're not just mass buying from the stores, but you're really looking for a collection that represents who you are. So I have the opportunity to bring in more vintage pieces and create more character through that.
So you mentioned that it's about looking for what's next. So what is next based on what you're seeing?
So it's been interesting. So some of the design influences that are more than just trends. It's about the way we live and that are affecting us. And of course, none of us can get around the effect of COVID and what's happened with us. And now we're all spending more time at home, and we're at home with, kids and mates and like a lot of extra layers that we didn't have before. So one interesting thing that is happening, before we were going into these big great room concepts and they were wide open, and now we're like, I need a little space for my family and kids, so we're separating those rooms a little more. So that's really interesting, and thinking about how we can layer tasks in different spaces so people can go and have different functions. We all need exercise rooms back in our spaces where that was more of a variable sometimes for clients. And so that's an interesting element that's impacting the way that we're doing design, right? And I don't even think that's just a trend. That's something we've all gone through this now for over a year, and it's going to have an impact on how we play out the structures of our home. So that's one thing I see. And I also see, at least in the clients I'm working with and the projects I do, is this real respect for natural materials and authenticity in that. So creating longevity in the materials that we're selecting, that can last longer than just a trend. I mean, if I see one more porcelain tile that's made to look like wood, please don't do it, everybody. Don't do porcelain tile that looks like wood. That just becomes really trendy, and then people are going to be ripping it out in a few years. So let's think past that and a little more classic and timeless.
Great advice. So what is next for you, and what are you working on now? What's coming down the pipe?
So there's a lot of exciting things that I'm working on. I'm working on a project that I'm part owner in that is a landscape hotel. So it's in northern Arizona, and creating places, retreats that we can go to that are out in the open. that we're connecting with nature, but we're also having these luxury experiences in small home structures. So that's been really exciting for me to do. I have a product line that I've been working on, that I have the furniture line. I also have been working on a bedding line, which has been challenging to get off the ground with all the challenges during COVID and China and all those things, but it's starting to really come together. And it's really influenced by another thing that I'm fascinated with. And this is going to be a little out there for some people, but I'm really fascinated with quantum physics and the impact the power of intention has on materiality, like what the material world and matter. So I love to explore it and explore new ideas. I know that the homes that I design, when I have craftsmen and artists that are involved in it, that have heartfelt connection to what they're doing, that space feels a lot different to us than if we're using something that's mass produced and someone's just trying to get in and out of there. Like, it does create a different resonance in the space. So, what is the power of intention that we can use behind the work that I'm doing as an interior designer? And that's important to me because I'll have to tell you, the most important thing for me about my career and my craft is the fact that we impact people in a positive way. It's not brain surgery. I'm not saving lives, but at least I can have a good influence on people. And it makes me feel really good. Like when I have my clients say, hey, I feel so serene in this place, or I feel so uplifted and happy when I'm in my home, or in like commercial spaces that we develop. If they walk through and they say, oh, this is so exciting, we feel so great to be here, we can't wait to come back because of the vibe of this place, that's a success to me. And I want to learn more and more how to make that happen at every layer of the senses. And so that's why I'm fascinated with this line of thinking, is how can I best impact the people I serve? So it has me exploring ideas around that.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Anita, for your time, and congratulations again on the Masters of the Southwest win.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. That was Anita Lang of IMI Design, one of our picks for 2021 Masters of the Southwest. You can catch all of them and so much more in the February-March issue of Phoenix Home and Garden magazine on newsstands now.